sites offer unique material insights into one of the most devastating systems of forced migration in human history. Unlike written records, often produced by those in power, these submerged sites can reveal untold aspects of the trade, including the lived experience of enslaved individuals, shipboard conditions, and the logistics of maritime trafficking. Their study contributes not only to historical understanding, but also raises important ethical questions about how we remember and engage with traumatic pasts. As such, these sites hold value not only for academic research, but also for public memory, education, and dialogue around the legacies of slavery today. From the 15th to the 19th centuries, the transatlantic slave trade saw the forced transportation of an estimated 12 million Africans to the Americas. Orchestrated by European colonial powers, this brutal system, known as the triangular trade, shipped enslaved people across the Atlantic in inhumane conditions. While it fueled economic expansion in Europe and the Americas, it came at an incalculable human cost. Thousands perished at sea, and the trauma endured by those who survived continues to echo through global society today. When excavating shipwrecks, ethics must come first. These are not just historical sites, they're graves. We must respect the dead, engage descendant communities, and avoid one-sided colonial narratives. Artifacts and remains need to be handled with care under legal or moral frameworks. Emotional impacts matter too, for both communities and researchers. The investigation of transatlantic slave trade shipwrecks today is shaped by a combination of legal mandates and evolving ethical commitments. National heritage laws in countries like the United States, South Africa, Brazil, and the UK regulate how underwater sites are accessed and preserved through acts such as the US National Historic Preservation Act and South Africa's Heritage Resources Act. On an international level, the UNESCO 2001 Convention on Underwater Cultural Heritage sets binding standards for signatory nations, prohibiting commercial exploitation and prioritizing in situ preservation. Beyond the law, ethical frameworks now emphasize justice, remembrance, and community engagement. Initiatives like the Shipwrecks project exemplify best practice by involving descendant communities and treating these wrecks not merely as archaeological sites, but as sacred memorials. Professional codes such as those from the Chartered Institute for Archaeologists support this shift, guiding respectful, inclusive practice. Together, these frameworks seek to ensure that the study of slave shipwrecks contributes to healing and not harm. The São José represents the first transatlantic slave shipwreck to be definitively identified. Setting sail from Mozambique Island and bound for the Brazilian slave markets, she tragically sank in 1794, wrecking off the coast of Cape Town. The archaeological investigation of the São José began in 2014 and adopted a targeted retrieval strategy, recovering items such as iron ballast, ship timbers, and shackles. However, not all items were recovered. Some were deliberately left in situ as witnesses to the event. The discovery has led to a variety of memorializing activities, including museum exhibitions, a publication, commemorative events, and poetic reflections. However, while the integrity of those involved remains undoubted, some aspects of the decision-making process remain unclear. For example, how were the decisions made regarding which items to recover and which to leave behind? The Slave Wreck project has confirmed that communities were consulted about the wreck's future, but the specifics of these consultations remain ambiguous. Were these the communities of Mozambique where the ship departed, or those of Cape Town where the wreck occurred? What form did these consultations take, and what were their outcomes? The ambiguity surrounding decision-making is a theme across the wider literature with regard to the community consultation processes. What is clear, however, are the outcomes, particularly in regard to public engagement and site protection. For instance, the São José has been featured in exhibitions on both sides of the Atlantic, highlighting the human cost of the transatlantic slave trade. Additionally, the site's exact location remains secret, a deliberate effort to protect it from exploitation. Unlike the São José, the Henrietta Marie was initially approached not as a gravesite or site of historical testimony, but as a potential source of profit. A private treasure hunting firm led the excavation, treating the wreck as a salvage opportunity. Legal restrictions briefly delayed the recovery, but once a salvage lease was granted, artefacts were collected and the standard 25% was handed over to the state. It wasn't until the 1990s that a shift in interpretation began. In 1993, the National Association of Black Scuba Divers installed a memorial plaque, formally recognising the site as a place of remembrance.
We, the members of the National Association of Black Scuba Divers, have this day come to this place to honor our African ancestors. Our visit here is testimony that we have not forgotten their suffering in the ocean crossings, nor the great pool of talent they possess.
Around the same time, a travelling exhibition helped reframe the wreck as a site of public memory. Later, 2 replica cannons were added to assist visitors in visualising the original layout. The contrast between the Henrietta Marie's accessible, memorialised site and the protected secrecy of the São José highlight how approaches to slave trade wrecks vary significantly by region and context. The São José and the Henrietta Marie represent 2 very different approaches to how we treat slave trade shipwrecks. The São José has been deliberately protected, viewed as a gravesite with emphasis placed on dignity, reverence, and preserving memory without physical intrusion. By maintaining secrecy around its location, the site is shielded from commodification and remains a place of solemn remembrance. In contrast, the Henrietta Marie is far more accessible, encouraging public interaction through diving and memorialisation. This openness, however, raises important questions. How do we ensure that access doesn't lead to exploitation? And at what point does engagement risk becoming spectacle? Despite their differences, both projects prioritise public education through artefacts such as shackles and shipwreck remains. Each seeks to communicate the human cost of the transatlantic slave trade in a way that is tangible and emotionally resonant. The core distinction lies in accessibility. The Henrietta Marie fosters direct engagement with the past, but risks oversimplification. Meanwhile, the São José safeguards the integrity of the site, but this can limit broader public connection. Both approaches acknowledge that these wrecks are not just archaeological sites, but spaces of memory and trauma. Central to each project is the need to honour those who perished and to handle these legacies with sensitivity and care. So which approach is best? There may be no single answer. Each model reflects its own legal, cultural, and geographic context. One underscores protection and ethical restraint, the other public involvement and educational value. The challenge lies in balancing these aims, preserving dignity while facilitating understanding. In conclusion, therefore, the São José and the Henrietta Marie reflect the complexities of engaging with the legacy of the slave trade through maritime archaeology. Rather than choosing one model over the other, the path forward may lie in integrating their strengths, combining careful stewardship with meaningful public engagement. Above all, it is vital that descendant communities remain central in shaping how these sites are interpreted and remembered. Only by honouring their voices can we ensure that these sites remain spaces of dignity, reflection, and truth. In response to this research, we propose a set of recommendations for the ethical management of slave trade wreck sites and artefacts. These include transparent community engagement, controlled site access, and thorough artefact documentation. Educational approaches should prioritise empathy over spectacle, and displays must honour those impacted. Regular review and international collaboration would help ensure that these sites are preserved with dignity, accountability, and a shared sense of historical responsibility.